Welcome to the People Experience Pulse podcast, your gateway to the new frontier of human experiences at work. On the PX Pulse, we're all about elevating experiences, fostering belonging, and building remarkable workplace cultures in a fast evolving world.
All right, welcome back, everybody. This is another episode of our Resilient People Leader series. We feel like resiliency is something top of mind for people leaders in this time of just confusion, change, everything that's going on in the world. So we really wanted to pour into you here. And as always, I'm with my co-host, Vicki. Vicki, how are you?
I am sleepy. How are you?
I hear you. We've been recording these early in the morning, y'all, and it's a good time to do it when maybe you're still kind of waking up and you're feeling through it, and we can be vulnerable in that, right?
Absolutely. Yes. I think it's just the state of things,
Yes.
Makes you think a lot.
It does, and makes you have to think on your feet, which
Yes.
is what we're doing here. So today we're going to talk about moving from reaction to impact, leading with purpose. And I'll be the first to say this is not easy because we all feel a little reactionary right now. But it is a good time to get back into thinking about your purpose and your mission and your values as a leader, which really help you lead in times of uncertainty. Don't you think, Vicki?
I do. I think it's more important than ever to do that because it's an anchor. Our values are an anchor for us. Our mission is an anchor. It's a North Star, whatever you want to call it. It keeps us grounded. So, yeah.
So just to frame this discussion a little bit, we talked about the cost of reactive leadership. It can lead to burnout. It creates a culture of panic within your organization instead of resilience. It distracts you and your organization from long-term vision and core values. And so tell me, Vicki, we talked about what purpose-driven leadership looks like.
Yeah, purpose-driven leadership looks a lot different. It's anchored again in the mission and the values, and it's not just a reactionary form of leadership to a crisis, even though you can do that temporarily, but it's not where it lives. It's also focused on shaping the outcomes you want instead of constantly adjusting to them. And last, I would say it builds confidence in your teams because it provides clarity and direction, which people need so desperately right now, don't you think?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think the more uncertain you are and the more you project that as a leader, the more that kind of bleeds into the culture of the organization. And I know that that's hard right now. I really do, because I feel it just as much as I'm sure all of you do. But in this time, it's really important to revisit that purpose that you have and really just root yourself in that, because it really helps you to meet all that confusion and be able to address with clarity and direction and kind of be more proactive than reactive in this time. So let's get into that. What are some tools maybe that we can guide everyone towards, Vicki, about shifting from reaction to impact?
I think the first thing we need to do is figure out where that's happening to us, which is not always so easy, especially in the midst of the day when, all the emails are flooding in and everything is kind of blowing up around you. You're putting out fires, but it might be helpful to just take 10 minutes of your day and ask yourself, where am I being reactive versus intentional? And my suggestion always to leaders is to take one step of that at a time. So don't identify 10 areas where you're being reactive, but maybe one, and take that small step toward intentionality. What do you think?
That's very practical. I do think that the busyness is just so distracting. It's so easy to just bury yourself in the busyness and choose to do things that seem like the next best thing. But if you don't give yourself that opportunity to step back and assess and have some time to really contemplate what's going on, you're going to get stuck in that cycle, that hamster wheel of reactivity. So I think that's a really good first step, Vicki.
It's so true. I heard as a caregiver, I'm constantly looking for strategies to make that easier. And I heard one the other day that was so poignant to this discussion. Someone said, when a caregiving task just comes at you, you have to decide, is this urgent or just loud? And so I think people leaders can ask themselves the same thing. is this truly urgent or is it just loud, like loud noise? And that's a good way to sort of make that decision. But we also have to connect decisions that we make to something more long term because the turmoil we're in now is not going to last forever. Things always shift. And so we have to connect those decisions to some sort of long term vision or strategy or value system, right? To keep our sanity.
Yeah. Yeah. So true. And I think the idea of the loudness that you were just talking about too, I've always heard the term like reacting to the vocal minority, like hearing kind of those loudest voices that are guiding you towards things that are shifting you away from that long-term vision. And you get too stuck on focusing on the short-term problems that you have to solve. And so if you as a leader can stay out in front and stay focused on that vision, it really is in service to the team and the culture that you do that and not allow those distractions to creep in and misalign you from the path that you're on. So I think that's a really, really good point. The other thing I think is important is just acting with purpose. So those proactive choices that are based on values, not that pressure that we just talked about, make a big difference. And I know that you've been kind of working on that personally in your leadership in your life, Vicki. So do you want to share a story about that?
Yeah, there's a word that's been coming up for me a lot in terms of being intentional versus reacting, and that is countering. So if I see something that I react maybe negatively to, so an example recently is my father was an Army veteran, and so I'm very passionate about veterans causes. And right now there's a hiring freeze on federal workers, and therefore there's some shortages at VA hospitals, which made me, kind of upset. And I thought, well, okay, I could react to that, and I did, and I felt sort of negatively about it, but I decided to just reach out to them and see if there were volunteer opportunities, and there are. And so I just sent off the email, and even the act of hitting send just made me feel so much more empowered and not stuck in a feeling of like a doom cycle, because it's so easy to do that, and it's what the news skews us toward is negativity,
It
right?
is. Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's easy to feel drawn towards that, but that's an action that's within your control. And I think when you can focus on the little things that can nourish your soul and empower you as a leader to take action versus feel like you have to constantly react like that, then you're taking care of yourself. And a healthy leader is always better at taking care of others. So I think that's a really great example, Vicki.
that is so true. And I'm sure you've seen a ton of examples in your own work as well about companies or any organization that resisted that feeling of wanting to have a knee-jerk reaction to an economic situation or something in the news cycle, but they resisted that and came out stronger. I'm sure you've seen a ton of that as well.
I have. Yeah. One great example of it, if you haven't heard of them, is Jackson Healthcare in Alpharetta. They're an award winning, mission driven family of healthcare workforce services, and they're a $10 billion plus private company, really based on values. And their values are others first, wisdom, and growth. And so they are doubling down on that. They're sticking to it. They're, everything that they do organizationally to bring their colleagues or associates together is rooted in those values. Nothing's changed. Nothing will. That's at the core of everything that they do. And it's driving business results and it's helping to strengthen the organization just as much, in this time. Admittedly, they're dealing with people who are concerned, about the shifts
Sure.
in the world and in politics, and that is brought into the workplace. But when you can agree to your core values as an organization, the role of the people leader becomes easier because it's reiterating that. It's making sure that all your touch points in the organization, whether that's your meetings or the way that you bring your networking, your ERGs together, they call it associate networking groups. All of those are rooted in your values and you're not straying from that. So as much as you need to kind of understand that there's circumstances in the world around you that are going on that are out of your control, being able to pull it back in to what unifies the organization and why people joined it in the first place because they believe in your values makes it fundamentally different, and it really kind of secures the long-term vision that we talked about.
Exactly. I think values are under talked about in leadership, that they are that sort of guiding force that you can always center things around, whether it's a meeting or a difficult decision or whatever it is. But I think more than ever, we need to be standing by that.
Yes, absolutely. Well, one thing we've been trying to do for you all in this time is address these pressures that you're feeling right now as people leaders, but also give you some maybe practical frameworks that you can apply into your leadership. And maybe that goes on a sticky note on your computer or something that you can just lean into and remember every day. It's easy to memorize. So, Vicki, you want to get into the framework that we talked about for this?
Yeah, so it's really easy to remember. It's called PATH, P-A-T-H, and it stands for pause. So slow down, take a breath, and assess that bigger picture. The A is for align. So again, ground your decisions in your values and your long-term purpose, not just the turmoil of today. The T is for thinking strategically. So avoid just those short-term knee-jerk reactions and fixes that might have long-term consequences and often do. And the H is to hold steady. And this is my favorite, I think. Just trust the process. Even when the results are not immediately known or seen for you, just trust the process. Trust yourself and trust your values.
Yes. Yeah. That's the hardest thing to do, right? Is to
It
hold
is.
steady. And when you're reacting, you're easily gonna shift away from what you know works and what you know is your true North Star. So love that framework. Pause, align, think strategically, hold steady, path.
Yeah, and I want to kind of reiterate to our listeners that this isn't going to be easy every day, and you're going to have days where you can't do this at all, and that's okay. You've got to give yourself permission and grace to have those days where you just you can't necessarily think that way or stop yourself from reacting. And acknowledgement is just as much of a good strategy as anything, to accept and acknowledge your own feelings and then maybe come back to this and, just keep coming back, keep coming
Mm-hmm.
back.
Yeah. And like I said at the top of the episode, I was looking at this episode thinking about how I haven't been great at this lately, and how easy it is to get away from that and to be reactionary. So the good challenge to ourselves is to just ask, where are we reacting instead of leading, and make that shift, make that acknowledgement, be honest with yourself, and then define that North Star statement to guide your decision making going forward, and realizing that purpose-driven leaders don't chase stability, they create it, and it comes through purposeful actions and frameworks like this.
Yeah. I'd love to give one last analogy. So when I was a teenager, I took flying lessons because my hope was to make a career in aviation and then in space flight, which is a long story for another episode. But one day we went up in the plane and my instructor was with me, and it was quite windy. So we were over the mountains and there was a lot of turbulence, and I was gripping the wheel really tight. And I kept just trying to adjust for the turbulence. And every bump, I would try to adjust the wheel. And she looked at me and she said, "You know what, Vicky? Let go." And I was like, "Let go?" And she said, "Just let go, like let go of the wheel." And I just couldn't even imagine that. But when I did, and she said, "Okay, now just put one thumb on the top, not gripping it really tight, and just ride the waves." And that was so effective. It made the flight so much smoother. And, but by trying to grip on, I just wouldn't let go. And I was trying to adjust to every wave. I think right now, more than anything, we just need to let go a little bit, put our thumb on the top of that yoke or the wheel, and just ride the waves to the best of our ability with our values as the anchor. And, how can you really go wrong? We won't do it every day. It'll be hard some days and really hard other days. But it's something that, I just wanted to share.
Yeah, it's really calming, and thinking about just that steadiness towards your purpose. The phrase I thought of going into this was purpose beats panic every
I
time.
love that.
So
Oh
if
my
you can
gosh, I'm
just
going to write
remember
that
that,
down.
yeah, and just breathe and stay on course. Stay on course.
Love that.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. So think about your next big decision that you got to make today. Are you reacting? Are you leading with impact and purpose? And As Vicki always says, how will you make a small but intentional shift this week?
Yes, always. I'm such a big fan of Neil Armstrong. So, one small step changed the face of history, and we can do the same.
Well, it's great to be with you all again today. Now go and be a people leader worth following.
Take care, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another insightful episode of the People Experience Pulse. We hope the words shared in this episode have inspired you as much as they've inspired us. Now the real challenge begins, putting what you've learned into practice. The change you create, no matter how small, could be the spark that ignites an exceptional people experience in your organization and beyond. If you found value in today's conversation, we'd greatly appreciate it if you took a moment to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. Your feedback helps us deliver high-value content and reach more listeners like you. You can find other inspiring episodes and additional resources at our website, thepxpulse.com. Join our community at thepxpulse.com. Thank you again for joining us on the People Experience Pulse. Until next time, remember, the heartbeat of any organization is its people. Let's make every pulse count.